Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. At the beginning of this week, we had a big spray unit dropped off here at the farm for spraying blackberries. We are part of the local land care and they have a weed management program. And part of that is to be able to borrow this big 600-litre spray rig unit with big, long cord hoses that you can walk quite a distance away from the unit and get quite a lot of spraying done at a really high pressure. And we've borrowed this the past few years and been really effective in being able to reduce the amount of blackberries that we have on the farm, which is really great. We will also be having a contractor come out and do a section of the creek for us as part of a grants program that we are part of with Melbourne Water, because our little creek flows into the Yarra. So it's about protecting all of the waterways. So we did some spraying of blackberries and some weed management along that last year. The same contractor will be coming back and doing another section, and then going back over where he'd already been and just checking that other weeds haven't come into place before native plants have been able to take hold. So far, we've only done one spray session of a couple of hours. That was on Wednesday. We did it early-ish in the morning and got up into the bush to a section we'd done last year. And we were able to really clearly see what we had already done. There was quite a lot of dead blackberry canes, which was really great. And there was also, so animals have been able to sort of push it down, and it was easier to get into some of the thicker spots that we hadn't been able to get into before. And then we were able to get in up behind them this time. There's sort of like a line almost across the hill in the bush, and it's a section that's blackberry, and then up above that there's none. So we're trying to make sure that it doesn't continue to creep up by getting in behind and getting all of the blackberries hopefully taken care of. The only problem will be with this first batch of spraying that we did was that afternoon there was rain, even though it wasn't forecast. Not a stack, but any rain, you sort of need a period of about 8 hours for spray to be able to take effect, for the leaves to be able to soak up all of the poison, and really start to do its job properly. So it may have been diluted a bit by the rain, so we'll just have to wait and see whether we were actually effective or not. Unfortunately, since then, the weather has been completely rubbish. There has been rain, and today it is so windy. It'd just be impossible to be spraying any kind of chemical without it going everywhere that you didn't want it to be. Early next week is supposed to be better weather, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get out and do a few more sessions early next week. The guy that we borrow it from is going to check in and see where we're at, because obviously there's lots of other people that want to borrow it as well, but hoping that we'll be able to have it for a little bit longer, considering that the weather hasn't been ideal for spraying at all this week. While we were up in the bush, I discovered a nest of ringtail possums. I was spraying and all of a sudden I heard this noise up in the tree, and I'd scared a couple of them out of their nest. So as soon as I noticed what I'd done, I took some photos, and then rather than continuing in that area, I kind of moved away and tried to make sure that I didn't disturb them too much, because I didn't want them to fret or end up abandoning their nest. Before we started spraying over in that side of the farm, Adam had done some slashing to create some paths for us, so it was easier to get the spray unit through without going through really tall grass and making sure we didn't hit any holes or logs or anything. And while I was over there, I decided to gather up some of that dry cut grass, because it's hay, and I brought it back for the sheep. So I'll probably do a little bit more of that around some of the edges where Adam has been slashing, to use that grass for a good cause. Did you just hear that? Yep. On a very unpleasant note, the vineyard across the road has started to use their air guns, which means that the grapes must be starting to be almost ripe. So yeah, from early in the morning through until dusk, past dusk, until dark, we are getting that air gun noise. It is making big flocks of crows and birds fly up out every time it goes off, which is obviously why they're using it, because the birds are trying to eat all of the fruit. Some of it is covered with nets, but they must, for some reason, need to have it open for some of the fruit for different varieties. I don't know. So yeah, they are using the air guns again. They are not as bad so far as they have been in previous years. They're not as loud and they're sort of not as echoey. It's a different sound. So I'm hoping that it stays that way and it's not just the particular spot that that one is in that is causing it to be not so bad, but it's still a bit jarring every time you hear it because it's a loud bang, kind of like a gunshot going off. I had been doing quite a lot of dyeing, but this week, past week, I kind of slowed back a little bit. Um, I don't really know why. I think I kind of got excited after being away to come back and do a lot, and now it's kind of getting back into the routine of it. I did finish the sock yarn that I had been working on, so I did a batch of Golden Ticket, some Pure Imagination, one of my earliest and favorite colorways, this one. I did some snozberries. And if you're watching on social media, you would have seen that I made a mistake when dyeing part of this. So some of it worked out right and some of it did not. And this is what came out instead, which I really, really like, but it's definitely not snozberries at all. Um, so I'm trying to think of a name for this. I've had plenty of very good suggestions on Instagram. I put a little poll out to ask, um, and I still haven't made a final decision. But I'm thinking that I will dye up some more of this, possibly today. I've got some yarn soaking now, and I'm going to finish doing the rest of the Wonka batches so that I have all of the Wonka colours restocked and ready to go for the next market that I'm doing. Um, but I might also do a few more of these as well because they are very, very fun. So yeah, dyeing today, so I'll be able to share that with you next week. I have been working on my website a little bit, designing the page where I'll have all of my market dates. And I have also been working on a class outline and handout for a brioche class that I will be doing with Tea Time Yarn Retreats. Barley is going to be doing a series of workshops at her studio. So there will be some dates coming out shortly for that, and I will be a part of some of the teachers that will be involved in those workshops. After finishing off a few things in the past few weeks, I haven't been terribly motivated this week knitting wise. I've only really worked on a couple of things and not a lot. I have done a little bit of work on my stripy socks from the Unwind Cruise colorway by Half Baked Hand Dyed. I found this purple in my stash. It was a one of a kind from an indie dye. I think I picked it up at Bendigo a number of years ago. I didn't have a label or anything on it. It was just in my scraps bin, but it just worked perfectly in with these pastel colors. I think it's really cute. So I'm just gonna, not sure how much longer I'm gonna make this, and then I will do the same for the second. I've done a little bit more on my brioche swatch, just playing around, not thinking too much. Part of that was to try and get some photographs for my handout and just sort of getting my head around the best way to describe some of those things. So it was kind of work, but also kind of not at the same time. I did start the Woolamai Pine scarf, although I'm going to turn it into a cowl. There were some instructions in some of the Ravelry project pages that talked about how to do that. So I have done a provisional cast on, and I'm holding that on a second cable. And I've done the first lot of lace, and I've just started the brioche section in the second color. So this is Your Turning Violet Violet, and I've just introduced Pure Imagination for the brioche section. I do have a lifeline in there. I just want to make sure that I get it right. If I'm not concentrating properly, I do tend to mess up my stitch counts just because I don't know, I just do. So better to have a lifeline in there and not need it than to have to pull everything back out. I did start this project in Golden Ticket, but because of the variegation, I started to think that that wasn't going to work for doing the grafting at the other end, because I wasn't going to be able to match up where in the skein the color was. So I went with Your Turning Violet, which is much more of a solid color, or like tonal, so that the grafting won't be an obvious line. So yeah, I haven't done a lot on this because I do need to concentrate, because it is a stitch count and a repeating pattern, and I want to make sure that I do it right. But yeah, I think it's going to look really pretty. It's very hard to see on here. I might pop a picture in as well. So because I haven't been terribly motivated with choosing another pattern or inspired by any of my current projects, I just cast on some cotton dishcloths. I've talked about this many times before. We use cotton dishcloth in our kitchen all the time, and because we use them so often, they do wear out. That was a loud one. So I have done 2 of these already. This is just a DK cotton from Bendigo. I'm using some old straight needles, and I've just got another one almost halfway through here. So this is just good, really mindless, keeps the hands a little bit busy, kind of scratches that knitting itch without actually having to do any thinking, even less thinking really than socks, because the needles are a little bit bigger. It's just a super simple corner to corner square. It's the grandmother's favorite pattern. So I'll get a few more done. I might get another one out of this ball, and I've got some other colors as well. So I'll probably do a couple for our coffee machine in a different color. And I'll hopefully by next week I'll be inspired to be back into some new projects, or quite a way through that Wool of My Pine or something else. Just yeah, this is really all I've had the brain space for this week. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.